Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood night. She comes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying,
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. It's time for another episode of Corner of the Galaxy from the Box, the show that gets you behind the scenes of the LA Galaxy and into the minds of soccer reporters and MLS experts. Your hosts for the day are Corner of the Galaxy's Josh Guesman and LA Times soccer reporter Kevin Baxter. Let's start the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on Monday, October 13th. LA Galaxy 2-1 winners over Dallas. That does something that, quite honestly, I think most people didn't think was possible. That moved the LA Galaxy out of the bottom of the league table, and that's where they will stay. We'll go over the math and tell you why the LA Galaxy cannot win the Wooden Spoon in 2025, something they seemed almost destined to do. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to get you sort of pointed in the direction of the Minnesota United game that's coming up and Fan Appreciation Day. Yes, we have stats on Fan Appreciation Day, and we're going to give you all the updates in terms of the end-of-year voting whenever it comes to LA Galaxy players. So we got a lot to do, but standing in for Mr. Kevin Baxter, who's off covering the Dodgers once again, it is Mr. Damian Calhoun. Damian, how are you doing, buddy? Hanging in there? Okay, good. I was trying to watch while we were getting ready, but then I officially had to turn my attention to the podcast today. So Dodgers are up, feeling good about that. Kevin didn't jinx them, so I mean, okay, it's over. Oh man. One is, I am glad that it is almost over, Damian. Sometimes you're just like, I think, not saying that you'll see an effect on the field, but I think the coaches, the players, everybody's ready to push this one behind themselves, right? They're like, okay, we don't want to play this game anymore, right? Yeah, we're gonna we'll see how that ends up sort of showing itself. But whenever we look at everything, the Galaxy are trying to do and everything that everybody's trying to sort of look at here, it's going to be an off season that is long, Damian. It's going to be an off season that is also very short, right? So there's going to be these mix of things, and we had heard that perhaps. Will Kuntz was in a mixer before this last game, and I think we heard some things that in terms of where they're focused on, and I've talked to the Galaxy. We're going to try to get Will on whenever everything gets wrapped up, so that way we can talk about the rest of the season. But it feels like this mixed sort of bag where they have a lot of work to do, but also maybe they don't want to change too much because you have to change too much, but then you also look at what this season was and the whole. To me, it's sort of this mixed bag of everything. Is that sort of where it is?
Yeah, you got to think a couple years ago they went into this offseason needing designated players, needed to fix everything. This year, all three are under contract, at least for 2 more seasons.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the big question is, once Ricky get back on the field, how does Ricky look, and who do you bring in to back him up in that spot? Because you're not going to run him out, in February in the Champions Cup. You're going to run him out, 90 minutes early on there.
Yeah.
So who do they bring on then how do they sort of restructure the midfield to sort of help bring Ricky along slowly?
So many things. So the little bit of what we heard, and again, there was sort of this mixer for fans that they did, and I think Will was the sort of honored speaker there and talking about how they fix the LA Galaxy. Damian, It's about fixing the spine of the LA Galaxy, at least from what I've been sort of, talked about, and people sort of clued me in on what was said. But it's about fixing that spine. That means that you're looking at center backs. That means that you are looking at goalkeepers. That means that you're looking for guys who maybe can, as you rightfully said, somebody who can sort of fill in for Ricky a little bit while he's sort of building up and building back to speed and getting all the things. But also, what does Sanabria look like? What does Surreal look like with Ricky in there? What does Royce look like? And then striker. What's going to be done about striker? Because I feel like the ship is sailing on Nascimento, who the LA Galaxy have to make a decision on in terms of whether they're going to purchase his loan or anything like that. I would be highly doubtful that they're going to look to purchase Nascimento unless they have a plan that includes another number 9 that's going to come in and do some things. So it's about fixing that spine. And unfortunately for the LA Galaxy, maybe too soft in some of those areas. Certainly at striker, almost non-existent this year, right?
Yep.
You got 4 goals from Ramirez early on. You have a handful of goals here from Nascimento, but with some more assists and stuff like that. Handful is probably too strong of a word. You didn't get anything from Miguel Berry this year. So all of your strikers, basically, Joseph Paintsel has been one of the guys who's been more successful at that spot than anything else. Greg sort of talked about how Gabe is a winger for sure, but Joe can play different positions and all that sort of stuff. So for me, striker's the biggest thing, because I go and look at the sort of year-over-year turnover, Damian, in terms of goals and everything else. The LA Galaxy last year scored almost 70 goals. This year, they're going to score around 45 goals. So a huge drop-off in terms of offense, right? And listen, the 69 was, basically a record for the LA Galaxy. So that's the other thing to sort of put into perspective. But the 45 is still well sort of underneath where they have been when we've seen them more successful. They've been closer to 60 than, closer to 40 in some of these. But you can also go and look at the defense. And I think center backs, Maya Yoshida under contract for next year, Zonka under contract for next year. Eric Zavaleta, I think his contract is up, so they get to decide what they're going to do with him. He should become a coach. That's what he should probably do. That's just my 2 cents and whatever. Yeah. Seeing that, so Eric Zavaleta, you have Chris Rindolph now, who's now signed and going to be on this team. You have Amiro Garces, and can Amiro Garces be your guy every single game? If you're expecting, I know we had a nice spirited discussion with some people before the game, and we were sort of talking about Amiro Garces and what can you expect from him, and how much can you trust him? So there's a lot of questions. Sanabria is a question. You purchased him. He's now a project for you because you purchased him. So how do you get the most out of him for next season? And how does that fit in with Royce? And how does that fit in with Ricky? Like the whole thing, there are question marks up and down. And while the second half of this season would have been good enough, Damian, if I looked at it, let's see. I wrote down some stuff. Basically, from game 17 on, the LA Galaxy had 23 points and 1.35 points per game. If you double that, right? If you take the 23 and you multiply, you get 46 points, right? If the Galaxy would play on the pace they did basically through the second half of the season, doesn't count Leagues Cup games, just in league, they would have 46 points and they'd be in 7th place in the Western Conference. Okay, they'd have they'd have 12 wins in 34 games, right? Like all of a sudden things become a lot better. So I think things have happened in the second half that have made the LA Galaxy a better team. But I think as the understatement of the year, they need to get way better than that if they think they're going to compete for a Supporters Shield. They're going to compete for a Western Conference sort of title. They're going to compete for an MLS Cup again.
Yeah, I think Greg said that either Thursday or Saturday about over the second half, the improvements, and he thought maybe if you take that second half performance and play it out, I mean they're possibly they do get in the playoffs, but yeah, you look at all the question marks they're facing. Sanabria, Marco had another year in his contract. Is he back?
Yes.
Diego Fagundes, his situation, is he back? But what we have seen is guys like Elijah Winder, who's taken this opportunity and sort of played his way into the mix and given the staff a visual sort of what he will look like next year when Ricky is back in there.
When we talk about team building, we have 2 sort of big hiccups that, in my mind, come into play. And maybe you can comment on this as well. One is that we know the LA Galaxy will be playing a game between February 3rd and February 5th, right? Because that's for CONCACAF Champions Cup. We know that that's still sort of in that primary transfer window. We know that it's difficult to get international players in before those times and sort of get everything to fit and everything to work. We know those things to be true. So how does Will Kuntz go about building a roster knowing that it's going to be almost nearly impossible to get the international players in that you probably want to get in? So at least the focus that I've heard is that there's going to be more of a focus on domestic players, which is fine within the league, and you can certainly play that game and you can try. But I think there's always limitations on trying to do that. Sometimes I think it's easier to buy somebody from outside the league than it is inside the league, right?
Yeah. You know, some teams out there might try to stick you up for something inside the league to sort of take away a little bit of extra gam and tam off your hands there. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Is that through the free agent market, or is that through trades?
Yes.
The roster starts. The whole roster build starts early, like late November, I believe.
Yeah, I actually have that. I can pull it up for you. Wednesday, November 26th is the club deadline to exercise options and submit the bona fide offers. So that is whenever stuff will start. Now, so we talk about that front end complication of trying to get internationals on, and if the Galaxy go and focus more on domestic players and try to toughen up, that's fine. Then I really like that. I think that's good. And by the way, it doesn't have to be domestic players. It could be international players that are inside of Major League Soccer as well. Don't want to just pigeonhole the LA Galaxy in. The other part of it now is that there is a 6 to 8 week break coming up inside of the season that will be the World Cup. And whenever that World Cup is done, Damian, the transfer window, the summer transfer window will open. And players will look to be moved off of their World Cup performances and other things. And I think that if you're the LA Galaxy, that might be a way for you to look at a potential of bringing in some big names. So, if you stay inside the league for the first part of it, do you go outside the league after the World Cup? Can you afford to do that? Speaking of World Cup as well, Joseph Paintsel now we know is going to possibly be on the team for Ghana. Ghana qualified. In fact, we can even bring that up. Ghana qualified today for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Joseph Paintsel, who routinely comes off the bench for this team, will probably get a chance to make this team and be playing in the World Cup. Somebody said it would be really cool to go to like SoFi, and I don't know where Ghana's going to play, but if you could be at SoFi seeing Joseph Paintsel play for Ghana, and, they get Galaxy fans will adopt the Black Stars in a heartbeat whenever it comes to Joseph Paintsel, right? So, but really interesting to see that. So now that's complicated things maybe for Joseph Paintsel. You have a guy who's going to want to stay. He just is finally getting up into like full speed, and you're finally seeing the Joseph Paintsel that really you wanted this whole season. Didn't play this last game because he was out on international duty with Ghana. Played 15 minutes in this last game. I think today they qualified, they're in, and so Joseph Paintsel should be back for the Minnesota United game. But you're finally getting a guy who's up to full speed, and all of a sudden now everything's going to shut down, right? This is one of the another reason why I truly believe, and certainly from the mixer and the rumors that I've heard, is the LA Galaxy will be playing a friendly. It is likely to happen in November, and at least right now, it was hinted at that it would be a top 10 Mexican team that would come in for that friendly. Okay, so there were two names mentioned. One was Club America, one was Cruz Azul. We'll see if either of those sort of pop up, but that would fit the top 10 sort of Mexican team, but coming in. But that's also good for guys like Joseph Paintsel who are trying to stay busy. I wouldn't be surprised if Paintsel tries maybe to find some place to play during the offseason for that. I mean, this is a guy who's going to be wanting to play in the World Cup, and he's not a lock for that roster yet, Damian. So could be a motivated Joseph Paintsel to come in whenever everything starts up in February and all that. But you could also see maybe a tentative Joseph Paintsel who's like, I don't want to get hurt before the World Cup. There's a lot of things that sort of go in and play with that. So I'm interested to see how that sort of affects things too. So I think there's so many complications that are going to hit very quickly, and all of these sort of clear cut, the LA Galaxy need this, that, I think everything gets thrown into a hat, and it becomes a little more jumbled up of who you can get, how fast you can get them, on what salary you can get them. The Galaxy, by all accounts, Damian, I know you've talked to people, I've talked to people, should be in good cap space framework for next year, right? We expect that they have it, but now you have to spend smartly, so that way not only are you good for 2026, but you're also safe for 2027, and you start sort of building a team up and making it the sustainable powerhouses like the Seattle's. Whenever you look at the consistency that Seattle's had, like get in the playoffs every single year and be competitive. So I think it's a huge uphill battle for Will Kuntz. I think there's so many moving parts. I am really glad it's not my job. It's like one of these. It's like, no, I don't want any part of that. So really sort of interesting on all those fronts. Now let's talk about the game, Damian. 2-1 win for the LA Galaxy over FC Dallas. This was on Saturday night. Wonderful. Like, it was almost cold. I think I wore a jacket. It was great, Damian. We're getting ready for our first winter-like storm here in Southern California for the season. It hasn't rained since like springtime, so everything. It's you can almost smell the playoff soccer, except for LA Galaxy. That's not going to happen, right?
No, it won't happen.
But what we did learn, and this is all the crazy stuff that happens. The LA Galaxy cannot win the wooden spoon. Win, in quotation marks, the wooden spoon. I don't know that there was a time, Damian, out in the entire, outside of the first probably 2 weeks where the LA Galaxy weren't at the bottom of the Western Conference or at the bottom of the table. Literally, they've been there for almost the entire season. And for it to come down to the last 2 games, and now I can tell you conclusively with the math that is available to us, the LA Galaxy cannot win the wooden spoon. They will not win it. It is impossible for them to do so in any scenario. DC or Atlanta will finish underneath them. We know that 100%. There's a chance that if the LA Galaxy win, that they could jump over Sporting Kansas City and not even be in last in the Western Conference as well. So we know with the math proves that out. The best part is that Atlanta and DC United will basically be playing for the wooden spoon, which is just amazing. They play each other, and I'm watching that game. If you're asking me which game I'm watching in the early games, it's that one. So
you have to watch that one.
That is absolutely the thing. So yeah, somebody said they can't even win the one trophy they were like almost guaranteed to get this year, and it's like, yeah, that's right, 100%. So the math goes like this: the LA Galaxy's worst finish, because they have 27 points right now, would be 27 points, right? They don't beat Minnesota United, nothing happens. That's their worst finish. If that was the case, the only team that could finish tied with them for that bottom. So let's say DC beat Atlanta, right? Atlanta would stay on their 27 points, but they would have one fewer win, and wins are the first tiebreaker. So that means that Atlanta cannot jump over the LA Galaxy. It means that the Galaxy, even if they tied for bottom with Atlanta at 27 points, would still be above Atlanta in the wooden spoon race there. More than likely, I feel, Atlanta will beat DC United. DC United will stay where it's at, and then the LA Galaxy will finish, at least a couple points clear of DC United. We'll see if all of that happens. But that is the math that was associated. That's what happened with a wacky red card, a goal from Elijah Winder, and a Gabriel Peck, finally put one in the back of the net kind of night that it was. Because that wasn't a great, clean, fun game, Damian.
No, not at all. It's one of those things where you always see a team go up and get a red card, and you think the other team is going to take it over and just dominate, put in 2 or 3 goals and just coast home. But there was nothing easy about that game. I think Greg said we made it harder than it had to be, and exactly what they did. But no, ended up getting the win. So,
I mean, it surprises everybody. The lineup for the LA Galaxy was Gabriel Peck up top with Nascimento, Mauricio Cuevas sort of playing in that position. Again, no Joseph Paintsil, so Cuevas playing in a more advanced position, although Winder was really the more advanced position, and Cuevas tucked in a little bit further. Cerrillo and Fagundes were in there. Then it's Nelson, Garces, Yoshida, and Yamane, with Mitrovic back in goal after JT Marcinkowski had the game before. So that was your lineup there. It all turns on a 16th minute red card. A red card that I still don't know if it's a red card or not. Funny enough, and this was without prodding from anybody in Dallas. As soon as I saw it, we watched the replays, and I could see where there's a hint of a red card, and maybe it's Marufo who was the referee. Maybe he saw the foul better from his angle than we had on the camera angles, because ours are sort of looking down this way, and he's looking from the backside, and so he may have seen the actual kick to the groin of Mauricio Cuevas from Farrington, right? And so maybe there was something there. But without any prodding, we put in a pool reporter question on that one, because I was like, hey, let's see where it is. And basically the referee, Jair Marufo, comes in and says, he's basically, it was a step or a kick to the groin. And that's why he did it. VAR doesn't necessarily show a kick. It shows perhaps there's a wiggle, Of something. There's a hint of something going on.
There's something, right?
Right. There's a hint of something, but I'm not sure. And maybe it's just not clear and obvious from the VAR side that there wasn't one there, because there's something there. So I think Dallas fans feel hard done by it, and I would agree if it happened the other way, I would sort of be like, I don't know if there's anything there. It is sort of ambiguous whenever it comes into that, but. A bunch of different things happened in this game too. Is not only do you get that 16th minute red card, but this breaks Dallas's, I think, 8-game unbeaten streak. It also broke. Musa had 10 goals in the last 10 games, and then he gets a yellow card, and I think now he's suspended for the last game on yellow cards. So now he can't beat the single season record for FC Dallas. Like this, it's just avalanche of stuff that sort of happened with Dallas, and Dallas was prime, Damian, because they could advance with a win in this game. So it got kind of like, it was almost not, it was this sort of tepid game, and you're sort of watching it. You're like, okay, let's see what goes on. And then all of a sudden it just exploded into like, a red card and like people like getting all chippy and doing all this stuff. I don't know. I don't like those games. There's too much expectation placed on one team, right? And it was the LA Galaxy. Greg said afterwards, which I thought was great, which was, because we were all thinking it, and I think we were even saying it in the press box, is you can't be up a man for 70 plus minutes and draw that game or lose that game. There's like no time. And he goes, Greg said the same thing. He goes, there's pressure put on you because I think the guys felt like we can't draw or lose this game. We have to win this game. And then they don't play basically the way that maybe they should because they're trying to press so hard with some of the things that happened in the game. So weird game. The goal that Dallas scores, I don't know how to explain how wide open that guy was. Did you have anything?
Yeah, no. I mean, I know Greg said he had to look and see how what happened there, how everybody got so wide open. And I thought to myself, you don't want to look at that, Greg. Yeah. I mean, it was just bad breakdown after breakdown that led to the goal there.
Maya Yoshida was so far behind that play, and it's like, was somebody supposed to be there to like, does Garces have to look over his shoulder and find that one? Like, how is that guy that open in the middle of the field when you're up a man? Like, it's almost like, I thought maybe they did like a hidden player trick where they hit him on the sideline and then he like ran out there. But no, we didn't see a lot of that. The Elijah Winder goal, I know you talked a little bit about Elijah, and you and I have talked about him throughout the season, both on air and together whenever we get a chance. Just seeing him score what I call like sort of a big boy goal, right? There was some pressure there. He gets played. Yeah, contact, right? And the whole deal, you had the goalkeeper coming out. Greg said he didn't even know if Elijah saw the goalkeeper coming out. I asked him specifically whenever we got to talk to Elijah. I'm like, did you see the goalkeeper coming out? He's like, yeah, I saw him coming. So he goes, I knew I had to sort of be quick with it. He slides it sort of underneath him, able to get the ball to go into the back of the net, little deflection, that type of thing. But Elijah Winder, I know people are going to sort of be hesitant to sort of say, oh, that's going to be one of the guys who makes a difference next year. He's not going to be a starter, but he's going to be a guy who comes off the bench next year. And if you have a healthy team, that's depth that you need in that position. And to me, I feel like he's made, I think you asked the question, but he's made more progress than maybe anybody on the field this year.
Yeah, that's what I asked Greg. I asked Greg if he had to list the guys who made the biggest jump, from camp to right now, would Elijah be at the top of the list? I think he didn't want to say it, but he sort of said it. He's come a long way. He started early in the season. Then I think things didn't work out. He ended up going to the bench. Then he ended up going down to Ventura County. Then he worked his way back up, and he's been getting a pretty good long stretch of games here. And you can see his talent. You can see why they paid the money to get him from Louisville. Yeah,
and not only that, but in a more advanced position. I think I asked Greg that question, which was you sort of had him in a different position. He was able to get, I think I said he was able to have some more go juice. I love asking questions and getting trapped in a word. But yeah, like more go juice. He was ready. He was free to get forward in this game, which I thought was a different role that we haven't seen him in. And I really like his defensive ability. I actually think he's one of the best pure one-on-one defenders that the LA Galaxy have right now, maybe outside of Garces, because I think Garces is a really good one-on-one defender, mostly because he has so much speed that nobody can really run away from him, right? But Winder, feels like he has that ability, that one-on-one, especially in the center. You see him breaking up plays and sort of winning balls, and he has some stick to itness, right? Just keeps going after the guy, keeps pressing, keeps pressuring. But we saw him on the offensive side a couple times, and I thought that was a different dimension. So again, as you see and as he grows, I think that's a really, really important piece that the LA Galaxy are going to want. But again, how does he fit into next year's lineup with Ricky, who should dominate most of the minutes in those positions? How does Winder get his time, and is that on a double pivot with Cerrillo? Again, Winder probably plays the Sanabria position about as well or better than Lucas Sanabria right now. So,
yeah, I think looking ahead to next year, there are three guys that are emerging from this season that needs to play a role next season. That's Winder, Cuevas, and Harbor Miller.
Okay, yeah,
those are three guys you think that has to play some kind of role next year. I know Harbor and Cuevas are both outside backs, but they also can play in the midfield some. But they're both versatile, so yeah, just a lot of questions for the staff to figure out for next year.
Yeah, it feels that way. The LA Galaxy dominate on possession, as you would expect. 5 shots on target. Listen, Dallas dropped into these low blocks and tried to make the LA Galaxy run and play through them. Dallas didn't have a whole bunch of chances, but they got the goal on one of the ones they did. 0.8 on the XG to the LA Galaxy's 1.5, and 1.5 being up a man for 70 plus minutes is probably low. John Nelson rang one off the upright on the far side on one of them. John Nelson needs to get a little luckier sometimes. I think. I feel and it was great. We got to talk to him afterwards. I don't remember who talked about it, but he was talking about how people sort of say that people classify him as like just a pure defender, and that he doesn't have the offensive skill and something. And he goes, and I just think that's wrong. He goes, I just think I felt like he was talking directly at me, Damian. That's what I was like. I was like, this is good. And by the way, that's what should happen. Like if somebody goes out there and you say, well, John Nelson's great. If somebody on this podcast perhaps would say, John Nelson is great, but he's a vanilla defender. He's like a really good vanilla defender, but a vanilla defender. He should come out and clap back whenever he's had the year that he's had and be like, what are you talking about? Did you not pay attention to last year and not this? And he didn't say it that way, but I'm reading between the lines of all the things that he said. And you know what? I think he's right. I think we don't give him enough credit on the offensive side of things. Greg said that particularly they were trying to get Cuevas and Nelson to whip left-footed crosses into the box in order to try to generate something from that left-hand side and create things. So, he's given specific offensive roles in this game, in this thing. Mm-hmm. This is a guy who was with St. Louis. St. Louis didn't want to play him for the second half of the season because he had performance metrics, I think, that would have gifted him another year or a contract, and they didn't want to do that. So they basically sat him and parked him. Will Kuntz and co. went out and found him and sort of were like, hey, we want you to come in here and play backup to Julian Aude that we're going to develop going through. And what does John Nelson do? But Aude gets hurt and Nelson comes out and he wins you an MLS Cup. More people should have John Nelson on the back of their kits for he and rightfully so. Again, John, and I've actually I'm hopeful we're going to try to have him on the show. I think on Thursday. Fingers crossed. Let's just see if everything works. But John, if you're listening, we want you on the show. We'd love to have you on. It's great. But no, I think he's rightfully called people out on this. John Nelson is one of the best defenders the LA Galaxy have had this year. But hands down, consistency-wise, it's not really. I don't think it's that close.
No, I don't think it's that close either.
So that's one of those things. Going into next year, John Nelson, Julian Aude. Now, what do you get from each of those? Aude has probably a lower cap hit than Nelson does because Aude is a U22, right? So, yeah. So what can you do? Is Nelson a movable asset that you want to move to somebody because somebody would want him? And did you ask if it's sort of like revitalized his career coming to LA? That was your question. What did you say on that?
Yeah. One thing he's always talked about what happened. Well, he hasn't really gone into all the details of what happened in St. Louis, but you can sort of put one and one together. Talking to him about that, and he said, he came to LA, looking almost like a restart. Got here, fought his way into the lineup, won an MLS Cup. Like I said, he came in this year. He's just been steady all year. And one thing about this league, when you hear Will talk about working inside the league, look at a guy like Nelson. people watching. I mean, do people? I mean, there's a possible trade. Is there a possible trade there that they move on him and then they keep Ade? This league always sort of take guys and move them from spot to spot. But if I was a Galaxy, I would look to keep Nelson for a couple more years.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And that's sort of, again, it's a decision they have to make, and what can you do without and the whole deal. So just a lot of question marks. We could talk about this game, and I thought that the Galaxy played okay for the situation they're in. Sometimes playing up a man is difficult. I've always said, and as a non-professional athlete, I get to say this with absolutely no retribution, and professional athletes can't clap back at this. Playing down a man is easy, man. Playing down a man is like one of the easiest things in the world, because this is what I always say. If you've ever played on any adult league or anything like that, maybe your guys didn't show up and you're gonna have to play down a man because you just don't have enough people, and you're like, oh, so I have to play the whole game, and we're just gonna have to be out here. Okay, turn that mode on. Hey, I just have to play the whole game. And we have to play as hard as we can. There's no game, there's no time off, there's no nothing. You just play hard. It narrows your thinking. You don't have to think about it. You just have to play really hard. So watching Dallas sort of fall back into that and look for the breaks, and I thought that they were really opportunistic on that. And again, Dallas advances goes to the playoffs with a win. That the crazy thing here is, and how big of a loss that is for them. You want to know how angry and upset they are, and that's why their fans are losing it right now too, with everything with that red card and everything. Here's the scenarios for clinching a berth for FC Dallas. They now have to win at Vancouver. That would qualify them for the playoffs. If they win at Vancouver, who's on top in the Western Conference? Oh, look, it's Vancouver.
Vancouver.
Yeah, and you have to play at Vancouver, where they've been very good this year, where they love to score goals and steal points, and Thomas Mueller is there and he's kicking butt, and it's just everything is going crazy. So this is the reason that I thought this was such a difficult game, and why Dallas really put up a big fight. You have a whole bunch of other scenarios that require other people, but Dallas draw at Vancouver and Colorado lose or draw versus LAFC. Or, that's a more likely scenario there. Dallas draw at Vancouver and Salt Lake lose or draw at St. Louis. We'll see. But yes, it could be. I think there's ways for Dallas to get in, but bottom line is, if they want it in their own hands, they have to win at Vancouver, and that's a huge uphill battle to be able to sort of do. So, again, why I think it was so chippy and why things were sort of going that way. Anything else from this game you want to talk about, or should we get to our ballots and our voting for Player of the Year?
Just one thing about decision day. You look at in the West, Portland's at 44, they're in, but Dallas at 8 is 41. Salt Lake and Colorado at 40, and then San Jose's hanging around at 38. So there's going to be some positioning, some changes, some movement going on decision day for the West, at least for the Western Conference, for sure.
Yeah, and so on the other side, Minnesota's locked into the 4. They could possibly jump over LAFC if LAFC loses or drops points, right? So yeah. Minnesota's locked in. They can't. Seattle can't catch them at 52. They're at 58 points, so they're 6 points clear of Seattle. That's not going to do it. So there is not I think if you're the LA Galaxy and you're trying to win the last game, which would always be nice, it would move you up the standings. There's a possibility that you get above Sporting Kansas City as well, so that way you don't finish last in the Western Conference. Some people in the press box are obsessed with the LA Galaxy, like not finishing last in the conference, but not pay no attention to the wooden spoon stuff. I don't think it matters. You don't want to finish last in the league. I don't think it bothers you as long as there are other teams that are worse. It's like the little victories that you get, Damian. The Galaxy will happily take the little victory. Yeah. Of not being last. So we look at this, and so I think that there is probably Minnesota hasn't played, I think, in 2 weeks too. So they'll probably be using this more as a tune-up, I think, coming into this game. So yes, Minnesota will want to show well, but I don't know that there's a lot of impetus for them to win. Which is an interesting, different, sort of take on everything when we look at it. One of the things that we had in this, and I'm sure I didn't get it, Fan Appreciation Day. I can tell you right now, Fan Appreciation Day, whenever it's at Dignity Hill Sports Park, and that is always the last home game, so we just consider the last home game Fan Appreciation Day. The last home game has a horrible, horrible record for the LA Galaxy. Okay, horrible. They have 2 wins, Damian, since 2013. 2 wins since 2013. One of those wins, by the way, I believe was in 2017, which this season is very much like 2017.
Yeah,
so
very much like it.
So perhaps they will get it. But usually The LA Galaxy, and you can go back further, and the Galaxy actually have a pretty good record on Fan Appreciation Day. You go before 2013 and less modern era stuff. They did okay, but overall, the Galaxy have had 2 wins since 2013. So this would be a chance for them to possibly get 3 wins since 2013 on decision day, on Fan Appreciation Day, whenever that goes down. So that's something that you sort of need to watch and pay attention to as we go through all of this. But yeah, we can go through standings real quick. Philadelphia at the top. They are the Supporter Shield winners over in the Eastern Conference. It's Cincinnati right behind them at 62, tied with Miami at 62. Charlotte at 56, so a little drop off on a shelf there. You looking at the players, at the teams who have been eliminated. Basically, all the teams that are above the line in the Eastern Conference are guaranteed to be in the playoffs, but there is a chance for people to move up into the different spots. New York Red Bulls are the 10th place team. They are 43 points, which puts them 8 points, I believe, shy of Columbus, who is the 9th. And by the way, who had Columbus almost not making the playoffs?
Yeah,
that was
crazy. Yeah.
It's way crazy. And that would also mean that both teams that were in MLS Cup last year did not make the playoffs this year. So just wanted to point that out. It could be worse for LA Galaxy fans. The Galaxy have 6 MLS Cups. They went to an MLS Cup last year. They won. Now they missed the playoffs. They finished almost dead last in the league, but they're going to finish above dead last. So they're there. Or you could be the New York Red Bull, who have never won an MLS Cup, who were in MLS Cup last year and now have missed the playoffs this year, even if it's a little closer than the LA Galaxy done that. So there are worse things in the world. We'll see how that all goes. All right. On the Western Conference, I think, Damian, you sort of pointed it out, but here we'll show you again. Colorado hanging around, San Jose hanging around, not eliminated. San Jose, Colorado, Salt Lake, Dallas, Portland. I think those are where everything sort of lays out there. I think Portland's fairly safe. Yeah, they're clinched into the playoffs. Just where they finish is where they'll go. But the only teams that are up for grabs right now: Dallas, Salt Lake, Colorado, San Jose. Those games will all kick off at the same time as the LA Galaxy game, so it's one if you are watching on multiple screens. If you're not going to the Minnesota United game, then that's one that you can sort of chase down. All right, let's get ready to talk about Player of the Year and Defender of the Year. The LA Galaxy media get a chance to vote every year, except for the year where the LA Galaxy front office decided to give Player of the Year to Giovanni Dos Santos for no reason whatsoever. He wouldn't have won that year. I polled the media. I know exactly who would have won, and it would have been the first time in LA Galaxy history that a defender won both the Defender of the Year and Player of the Year, and that would have been Yella Van Dam that year. But instead, we didn't get the vote. And they just gave it to Giovanni Dos Santos. They probably figured that he wasn't going to win it, so that, it's a whole deal. There were some other times, I think, whenever Alexi Lawless was around, that the media got votes. No vote was taken. So, but we take it seriously. So, we talked about it on last Thursday when we were getting ready to it, and one of the things is you have to look at Player of the Year, Defender of the Year. Which one? We should start with the easier one, because I think there's a very easy one, and then I think there's a harder one. I think Player of the Year is an easy decision this year. And I think you and I have had that discussion as well. I think Defender of the Year is a much more nuanced one that we can talk about. So do you want to, you're up for sharing your ballot. I'm up for sharing my ballot, so you guys will know how we voted. Are you good?
Yeah.
Okay. Go for it.
Player of the Year. I think this is how I voted. I voted before.
Go 3, 2, 1 if you can. So we can build a little suspense.
Okay. I think this is how I voted, because I voted, but I forgot to write it down.
Yeah, I know.
Before I hit submit. So I think this is how I did it, though. Player of the Year 3, John Nelson.
Okay.
2, Edwin Surreal. And my pick for Player of the Year, Diego Fagundes.
Okay. My 3 was Marco Royce. My 2 was Joseph Paintsel. And my 1 was Diego Fagundes. All right. I think Diego has been... I think he's been head and shoulders just from the consistency across it and what he's been asked to do this year and everything else that sort of comes with not only just being, a good player, but a good teammate across everything that he's done. I don't know that it was a hard choice for a lot of people. I think it's harder to pick 2 and 3 than it is to pick 1.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you vote, it gets 1 gets 3 points, 2 gets 2 points, and third place gets 1 point. So that's one of the ways to do it. So is there? I don't know that. I really like Joseph Paintsel. I liked how he came on in the second half and showed some stuff. I think that's good. For me, Marco Royce, had he been healthy and had he played more games, would have been maybe a player of the year candidate, right? I put him in there because I think he deserves at least the mention of it, because when he played, he was really good. I really enjoyed him and what he was able to do with the team, but I don't think it's close. It's Diego Fagundes hands down for me, and that really is a interesting question when you realize he's out of contract and what happens, next year. So
exactly.
Could be that. Anything else on Player of the Year that you wanted to throw in? John Nelson is a bold choice on Player of the Year, but I mean, I don't know that I disagree on the whole thing. He's been one of the most consistent players, right?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I shied away from Marco, just his availability. He wasn't really available that much, especially the second half. And even Joseph's under 2,000 minutes, I believe.
Yeah, I can show you minutes right here. So he has 1,889 minutes. So he played 63.6% of the total available minutes available across the entire season, right? Yeah. So that's low. Gabriel Peck, 80.2. Unfortunately for Gabe, I think that had he scored more goals, had he not sort of, and if you watch the Dallas game, watch how many he hits that don't hit the frame, that sort of go out. Like, just everything about him this year has seemed like it just couldn't get going and off, right? The whole day. And I think, had he hit the back of the net, 5, 6, 7 more times, well, obviously he'd be player of the year, right? Like, it was one of those. But he's put in the effort. You just have not seen the results from a lot of his effort this year.
Yeah. I mean, 80%. I mean, he's up and down the field all night too. And I'm sure he's probably logged the most miles of anybody this season. Him and Paintsel probably. Him and
Cerrillo. You watch. Cerrillo puts it. I mean, by the way, player of the year argument, Edwin Cerrillo should be somewhere around there in some of the stuff. And if he's not, because I think he's played what he's been asked to do, where he's been asked to go, how he's sort of grown this year. Again, I think it only benefits the Galaxy next year. But Cerrillo to me is much higher on my list than I think maybe on a lot of people's lists. I really have enjoyed watching him try to sort of control that sixth position there, knowing that so many things have changed around. Greg's talked about how he thought the best sort of midfield control area was with Diego, and then Marco up as sort of the 10, and then Cerrillo back behind Diego. And you saw the Galaxy have a lot of success with that. I think all three of those players did a lot of stuff. So interesting to see that. Okay, so those are our player of the year. Again, it goes across all LA Galaxy media, so I can tell you just in general, I feel like Diego Fagundes has a pretty good shot of winning player of the year. These things always can turn tides. I think it's going to be really split because I don't think there's a clear sort of answer, but in my mind, Diego Fagundes is head and shoulders clear than everybody else. So that's me. Defender of the year. I think this one's way harder. Mostly because the LA Galaxy have had a porous defense for most of the year. So like guys who you would want to put in there as Maya Yoshida, had some injuries this year, but hasn't been, I'd say, great this year. And in some cases, the defenses looked really poor under his leadership. I think it's gotten a little better here towards the latter half of this year. And I think things got a little bit better with that. Miro Garces, I will continue to say this. And I guess some people think I'm wrong. Miro Garces is one of the most talented players on the field whenever he plays right. In fact, he could be the most talented player on the field when he plays correctly. And is really locked and engaged, and I don't think we saw a lot of that. So Miro Garces would be in there. I think Edwin Cerrillo should be a Defender of the Year candidate because, quite honestly, what he's able to do from that sixth position and how he sort of has to play and marshal the defense, I think Cerrillo has been one of the more consistent people. You could look at Julian Aude. I know people have talked about that. I know the big one, certainly the fan favorite side of Defender of the Year, would be Mauricio Cuevas. And so, we can talk about Mauricio Cuevas. I also think that John Nelson is very truly in the Defender of the Year category. And I think, Damian, you probably have him pretty high, being you have him as one of your player of the year guys too. So, we should point out there are no rules that Defender of the Year has to be a defensive position, right? So it can be anybody on the field. That could be goalkeeper. That could be a striker. I don't know why you would want to maybe Miguel Berry wins Defender of the Year. I don't know. Maybe he made like 3 goal line saves, and you're like, that dude is Defender of the Year this year. So it's open to all positions. You're allowed to choose anybody you want. The criteria for it are who is your Defender of the Year. So that means the criteria is open. You can decide how you want to do that. maybe you want to pick somebody who's a more offensive player, a la Mauricio Cuevas, right? Now, I here's my problem with this, and I think Mauricio Cuevas has played really well this year. Outside of of Harbor Miller, Elijah Winder, Mauricio Cuevas, he's right in there in terms of how much he's grown this year and how good he is. He has the most dangerous right foot on the LA Galaxy in terms of crossing. He is the best crosser of the ball. There's a whole bunch of things. So if you want a defender of the year who is more offensive minded and doesn't play great defense most of the time, Mauricio Cuevas uses speed, but I would not say he's a great defender yet. And I think that's one of his biggest growth areas is the defender side. Then you could absolutely have him as your defender of the year. And I think that he'll get a lot of votes for defender of the year because of that. I tend to lean more on the defender of the year means you have to be defensive minded and play somewhat good defense. So those are sort of my things. Do you have criteria of your own for defender of the year, or is it's just sort of like, hey, I think you fall more along me, which is somebody has to play some defense.
Yeah, somebody has to play some defense. I know one year I voted for Mark Delgado as my defender of the year. Might have been 2 years ago, might have been last year. I'm not even sure. But yeah, you got to play at least some kind of defense.
Right. Now, I would like to point out, and I pointed this out to Damian while we were in the press conference because he was looking at the voting while I think Greg was finishing up. And I said, you pointed out some of the guys who have been like defender of the year, player of the year, that type of thing. I'm like, let me find my favorite one. And I'm like, Leonardo was defender of the year. I remember voting that year. So again, it doesn't have to be these great players all the time. It sort of happens what happened that year and how did it happen that year. So I think that sort of goes into defender of the year. People are saying Cosmo, that's one of those. Garces, by the way, Amiro Garces, you absolutely can. Availability was a problem for me, and as awesome as I think his one-on-one defense is, his consistency in being in the right place and not causing more problems than he creates, because I think poor fouls. He had a couple fouls against Dallas where I was like, oh, I remember how Amiro Garces plays. That's right. You poor fouls like in dangerous spots for no reason whatsoever. So I think those things sort of come into how smart you manage the game. Certainly, so we all have our criteria. We sort of sit down, we look at it, and we hold it. Do you want to do your defender of the year? Let's figure this one out.
Yeah, and also the one player I pointed to Saturday was Diego Polenta, 2019.
Diego Polenta, yeah. That's a great one. That's a great, 100%.
I forgot all about him.
So
my three starting from my third pick was Amiro Garces. Some nights it's the full Amiro Garces experience. You get some of everything. You get the speed running down players, and you get the flopping down. Then you get the fouls. You get everything.
I will agree with you. My number 3 was Amiro Garces. So we're on the same page. We'll go pick for pick here. I have a feeling we might have similar ones. Let's see.
Yeah, number 2, Edwin Surreal. He's just we've already talked about it. I mean, one thing he said last year he had guys around him who helped him. Gaston, Delgado, different look around the midfield. This year it was he was driving everything, and I think he did an okay job for a team that struggled defensively.
My number 2 is also Edwin Surreal. So we are 2 for 2. We did not plan it. I didn't want to know Damian's beforehand. I know who the number 1 picks were, but I didn't know 2 and 3. So we are good. So our number 1 pick for defender of the year is you can say it.
John Nelson.
John Nelson. Okay.
Yeah, he's just been consistent all year. We've already talked about it. Just steady. I think I wrote a couple weeks ago. Just been steady.
Yeah.
In a difficult season. And also last season, he was steady as well. So that's my pick, John Nelson.
John Nelson, that's mine as well. And by the way, and rightfully, again, hopefully we'll have John out on the podcast sometime soon here before the end of the season. We are expecting, I think, some exit interviews and some stuff like that as well. Perhaps we get to talk to Ricky Puig would be a big one to sort of talk to at the end of the season and sort of find out how he's doing. But talking to any player, quite honestly, is going to be interesting, especially when you look at this. But John Nelson, for me, has just been consistently a great defender. And by the way, he's turning into one of the best left backs in Major League Soccer. And I think you have to sort of sit there and say, yeah, that's a real thing that's happening. Does he have blinding speed? No, he doesn't. But he's smart. He's good on defense. He doesn't create usually big problems. And I think in a year where the LA Galaxy's defense struggled, that it was rarely from his side. So I am okay with that. Now, the rest of the LA Galaxy defense, as we talked about, is totally up in the air, Damian, in terms of who's going to stay, who's going to go, and everything else that's in between. And where does Chris Rundolph play into this? Where does Maya Yoshida play into this? Where does Miki Amane, quite honestly, play into this? The really awesome thing that we haven't seen, somebody said it in the chat room earlier, but Greg called Miki Amane sort of a versatile defender, but this year we didn't get to see too much of that inverted defender coming up next to Cerrillo and doing that stuff, because quite honestly the Galaxy were playing from behind so many times they weren't able to sort of set into their defense. As it stands right now, Damian, the LA Galaxy scored first 11 times. They had a 6-4-1 record whenever they scored first, outscoring their opponents 23-14. But they still allowed the first goal 22 times. That has to be a record. And they got outscored 41-16, 0-14-8 when they allowed the first goal. So, that's not a good sign. So basically, if Minnesota scores first on Saturday, everybody can just get up and go home. They ain't winning that game. Yeah, that's it. It's time to go. So that's sort of something to look at. But Miki Amane, one more year, I think, left on his contract. A guy who really was a great part of that 2024 championship team. Less so this year, quite honestly. And you've seen, the reign sort of maybe Harvey Miller start or Mauricio Cuevas start. So all three of those guys play that position differently, and that's going to be how which guy fits the system the best, and who do you keep and who do you move, and all that sort of fun stuff as well. So, it'll be an interesting one on that one. I'm trying to think. Any of the other stats? Well, we've already told everybody, and I think everybody should know this by now. This will be the worst LA Galaxy team in club history. We know that. Even if they get all 3 points, they finish at 30 points. The 2017. 2017 had an away game as the last game. FYI. That's how that worked. The fan appreciation game, I think they actually won. So, but they had 32 points. At this point in 2017, that means that at 27 points, you put 3 more onto that, that'll be 30. That means they will finish with the lowest point total per 34 games in club history, but also their points per game will not top above the 0.94 that happened in 2017. So it's going to be under that. That 0.9 or so that it could get to, or 0.88, and that will be the lowest points per game total in LA Galaxy history as well. So that's not a great look for everybody whenever they go into that. One more thing. I'm sort of hemming and hawing about all the different stats we have. The LA Galaxy's win percentage this year, as of right now, 18.2%. They won 18, less than 20% of their games. Yeah, I know. It's not great.
Not great.
As an understatement. 54, their losing percentage, almost 55% of the time. So that was good. They got a point or better 45.5% of the time. So a point or better means you got a draw or a win. Last year, whenever the LA Galaxy won MLS Cup, they had a 76.5%. So 3/4 of the time they got a point or better. Just to put that all in perspective. Also, the winning percentage was almost 56%, 55.9%. They won 56% of their games. So again, something to sort of watch as we transition into this next one. Damian, anything else on the season as a whole here, or should we give the people the Minnesota game time and tell everybody who? There's a surprise guest that I didn't know was coming on. Do you know about the surprise guest?
No.
Oh, man. Minnesota United game coming up on Saturday. It is a 6 p.m. Kickoff. I believe it's actually going to be like 6:10 or 6:15. Everybody kicks off at the same time in the Western Conference. Yeah, so it will be a same time start. The Eastern Conference will play will also all kick off at the same time, but play the early games. All right, so all those stuff will be in there. But the surprise guest coming for Fan Appreciation Night is everybody's favorite Frenchman, Ramon Alessandrini. He will be back
Alessandrini
at the stadium. I mean, there's you can't get better than Ramon Alessandrini. They're also doing Dia de los Muertos bobbleheads in there. Ramon Alessandrini will be there from 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. So they're doing the jerseys off the back. There's in-game prizes. Did you know once, way back in the day, whenever I was a season ticket holder, Damian, my season ticket rep, came up to me. I think this was like in 2009 or something like that. She came up to me and she was like, "Hey, this was a really cool thing. Do you want this?" And so she handed me a soccer ball, and it was signed by Pele.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I was like, man, that is awesome. I got a ball signed by Pele. Literally 2 weeks ago, one of the assistants in my office walked into my office and saw the Pele signed ball. She goes, "You have one of those?" I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "I have one too." Dude signed everything. So, I'm not sure it was anything in there. So I thought that was interesting. The other thing that I saw on here was before kickoff that they're having the low price, like the how do you say it? Not low price, but the low cost concessions, hot dogs, and that type of thing are going to be at a fan appreciation price before everything sort of kicks off. And so as soon as that comes up here, I will look for it. It's in the next slide, so we will find it right here. Hot dogs $4.50, sodas $3.75, popcorn $3, churros $4. Right, so
only until kickoff, though.
Only until kickoff. Yeah, you got to get there early if you're going to have that. So anyway, that's sort of on the list as well. So that's what we got coming up for that game. Anything? Do you? These are always such weird seasons whenever they end like this. They're sort of no hope, right? Diego Fagundes, by the way, sitting on 79. Didn't get an assist or a goal in the game. Although every time he touched it and he passed it, I would be like, assist.
Yeah.
It could be if somebody puts that in. So it was great. A big shout out to Steve at AFJA, by the way, who was big on Central American Heritage Night. Did the posters and everything. You got a poster, but also had outstanding pupusas and everything else. It was great. So I hope that was a success for them. I always enjoy those. I met so many wonderful people, a bunch of Salvadorans and just everybody else in between. I enjoy it. I like the music. Damian, the pregame, I was having a great time. So I enjoyed all that. My adopted people are my Central American people. I don't know how it works that way. And as a white guy, I always feel a little uncomfortable like saying that, but I absolutely love everybody I've met from any of those Central American countries, particularly from El Salvador, who just seem to enjoy me as a white guy. And then Eric Zavaleta is like, I think he's whiter than me. I swear to God, but that guy's Salvadoran as well, and just they have such love for the sport and love for the LA Galaxy. It's amazing. So really great. So. Anything else you want to talk about in this Minnesota game or anything like that?
Shout out to Ventura County, who starts the MLS Next Pro playoffs, I think, on Sunday.
Ooh.
One thing about MLS Next Pro, the clubs pick their opponent.
Yeah, so the higher seeds get to go and pick like the number one seed gets to go down the whole list and like pick whoever they want to play.
Yeah, I guess I looked at Ventura County and said, it's a bunch of teenagers. Let's get them.
Yeah.
I think they did beat St. Louis early in the year, but one of the staff told me that was when they had, I think Ruben was down there, Harbor, and you think maybe Elijah Winder was down there as well. But now they're all up with the first team. So good luck to those guys, Matt Taylor and those guys as they head into the playoffs.
Yeah.
At least some Galaxy team made the playoffs.
That's right, 100%.
There you go.
And by the way, like just what they're able to do with the younger guys and sort of as they continue. Again, the idea is more development than I think results a lot of the times, but it's important for teams to win down there as well, as that sort of helps people continue to want to play and have success for that. So we will of course be back on Thursday night, get you ready for the Minnesota United game and Fan Appreciation Day. So we'll have all the other stuff. Hopefully we'll have some special guests that will join us that night as well. All right. I would love to say that Damian does an excellent job, so make sure you go follow him at all of his wonderful places. The Southern California News Group and Damian Calhoun. I mean, he actually shows up to all the press conferences in person. It's craziness. So,
I was late last Thursday, but this week I will be on time.
You were late. They let me ask the first question on Zoom. That's how late you were. They're like, "Oh, Damian, nope, sorry, doesn't work." So no, it was awesome. But no, you've done a great job. So and I appreciate you filling in for Kevin. He's out covering the Dodgers, but he also says he has a massive cold as well. So I don't think we would have got him either way. You know how that is. You hang out and you travel and you do all that stuff for the playoffs. You know,
that's the worst part about traveling. You get sick in the airplanes and the hotel, and it's.
Damian's like, I don't do that travel. Damian like lives like 12 minutes from the stadium. I swear. Like, I don't know how fast you're always there so quickly. So I enjoy that you're there, and always great stuff. So Damian, why don't you tell people where they can find you, and we'll get on out of here.
So Southern California News Group, which is the LA Daily News, Orange County Register, Long Beach Press Telegram, all up and down Southern California. All social medias is all Damian Calhoun. That's it.
All right.
Looking forward to wrapping up another season here and getting ready for another busy off season.
Yeah, it's going to be busy and crazy. Damian, we appreciate you stopping by, certainly. If you're looking for me on all the social media places at Galaxy Podcast, cornerofthegalaxy.com, and of course, YouTube, SoundCloud, Apple Music, any of the places you can find your podcast, you can go ahead and find us there at Corner of the Galaxy. Just type it in, and that's where you'll find us. All right, we appreciate you hanging in there. Again, we'll be live on Thursday night at 8 p.m., getting you ready for the Minnesota United game and Fan Appreciation Night. For Mr. Damian Calhoun, I'm Josh Pato Guesman. You've been listening to Corner of the Galaxy from the box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye.